Joining us is criminologist Professor Ramesh Deosaran. A pleasant good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Mikey. Good evening.
Yes, I know last time we spoke, I wish things were a lot better now as far as the crime situation. The murder toll now stands at 348 for the year already. And of course, the Minister of National Security, Mr. Fitzgerald Hines, asked by the media, he said that his performance is one that many are calling for him to go. But he argues that not enough. He said that those making the call argue that not enough is being done to arrest crime in this country. Where are we at? We're hearing from the chambers, the business chambers. We're hearing from all sectors of society now. And we didn't get here overnight. Where are we at this point, and what needs to be done now?
Well, we are in a very bad place, Mikey. That is the national consensus. I think the minister, the prime minister, the government, they are all in a very worrying position. It's troubling to them, I suppose. There are serious social, political, legal, economic implications, and of course, the politics will be played out in this regard towards the next elections, which makes the situation having much more heat than light, because whilst the government is properly engaged in defending itself and explaining, as Minister Hines has been doing, the opposition has a role to play, and they are playing that very aggressively in and out of Parliament. So the solutions now are necessary, but they are sharp political divisions, and I don't know to what extent these divisions will help us carry these solutions in a sustainable way. But you know, Mikey, if you look at this thing from the top, first of all, the whole country is under siege. So crime is now a national issue. But we are not getting, for the reason I just explained, a national response. And I don't think that is going to happen in the near future. I don't know how the government will override that opposition rule. Secondly, these issues, as you rightly mentioned, Mikey, relating to crime, gangs, school violence, home invasions, robbery, larceny, the conditions didn't happen overnight. Just as we cannot solve crime overnight, the conditions that lead to crime didn't happen overnight. Now, having said so, it means that there should be a collective responsibility as far as the government goes in dealing with crime and securing a national response. So they have to shape the dialogue. The narrative in the public domain must be one towards a national consensus. The business organizations are feverishly complaining. The education system is still in dysfunctional mode. But you have to get things together in order to have a national approach to this matter. If it continues to be bipartisan, in my view, you might get half of the pie, but you need the whole thing, the blinking whole thing, so to speak. So we have to look at now, coming down lower down, and the third issue is that what are the proposals that the government have? What have they put forward? The last meeting the Prime Minister and his minister held with all the protective services is to look at intelligence-driven crime fighting. Now, that is an old issue. But the question I asked, I agree with him. Dealing with crime has to be scientific. You have to escape the propaganda and the self-defensiveness and so on. Science is good. Meaning, well, having said so, how will he know the instructions he gave to the police in particular and all the other protective services? How will he know if there is improvement emanating from his meeting? He has to use measurement. He has to say, well, at this point, there are so much murders, there's so much robberies, there's so many home invasions, and in the next 6 months, the government would like to see a 10% reduction in these things and a 20% improvement in the detection rate. So you have to put benchmarks on these protective agencies, and don't just say you're supporting them and you wish them well. In fact, the programs you had before had a lot of church preaching and people praying to God. We could pray to God, but this is a constitutional society. It's a secular society, meaning that things are being done by the government in office, and the opposition has to play a role and see whether corrective devices could be introduced, other than just they have to make constructive criticism if they do. So we're in a bad place, and it has serious implications for our social, economic, and political life. And I don't know how we can get over this. I don't see anything. I don't see any big light at the end of the tunnel. I think the government has to reorient itself. I know Minister Hines is under siege, but I mean he keeps, and likes that the government keep making promises which does affect their credibility. So you have to have trust in the government. You have to have trust in the political system, and I don't think that trust is as large and high as it's supposed to be.
I understand.
So crime is not just policing; it's the environment in which the policing operates.
Yeah, but when you talk about trust, I mean, trust has to be based on the fact that, if we're having a conversation, it's not just a one-way thing. I mean, I'm expressing myself as a citizen, and you as a government who has that responsibility first and foremost to secure my life. That's one of the major roles of any government. So I'm telling you, listen, there's something wrong. You have elderly people who are going to the bank. You have business people who are going to financial institutions. They're conducting transactions, but they become soft targets. Somebody's marking them. Somebody's giving the criminals the information. I mean, it's not to say as though you're not aware of these trends that are taking place. We're seeing it. At some time years ago, we had a trend where people followed from the airport, returning flights and going home. And of course, that was dealt with because we got to the root of that problem. So having this conversation and building trust has to be the fact that when we express ourselves to you, we need to hear some response that is logical and very serious in a critical time.
That's the point I am making, Mikey. Trust has to be earned, and right now the level of trust is dismally low. So every time a minister or the prime minister speaks, it doesn't resonate in the way that you were talking about it. You have some dangerous situations now. It isn't only the statistics, Mikey. It is the widespread public fear. People are afraid to go outside now. When they go to the groceries, they lock the car, they're looking left and right when they are coming out. You have people, law-abiding people, Mikey, sleeping in their beds, and they are brutally shot. I mean, could you imagine that? You have people driving their cars into their gate. As they get to open the gate, they get shot, wounded. You have some serious issues facing us, and the government has to show an increased level of performance. They have to. There's no alternative. I'm not talking about the next election. I am talking about a government by the Constitution. I think it's Section 52 or something so. They are responsible for the country's public safety and the country's peace. So they have to answer to the Constitution, and they spend over $500 billion since in office. And a large amount of money in national security.
And you're right.
Somebody has to answer, and somebody has to be publicly accountable now. Look at the lady who headed the security services in the United States. Clearly the security services made some errors. And the lady had to resign under inquiry by the Congress. We have to lift our political system to that level.
And you're right about that. And again, it's not a matter of having all of this money, having all of these resources, but the majority of it seems to be spent on public relations and too much PR. When you have a commissioner of police saying that we have not lost a handle on crime, but it continues to be diverse, and we continue to adjust our strategies. All right, so are we going to keep adjusting these strategies and hope that one day you get it right? And at the same time, as we stand now, as I mentioned, we're at 348 murders for the year. Are we going to get it right when we reach 800, 900? When exactly do you intend to get it right?
It's getting worse, Mikey. It's getting worse. And I don't know what the figure will be in murder rate at the end of the year. But you see, these officials do themselves, they shoot themselves in the foot. The commissioner recently said, I think it was 2 days ago, the police will be acting with full force.
Yeah.
Now, that was said in the front page story headline in the Express, was said to be the same thing from the Prime Minister. We acting with full force. So that is not sufficient to tell the public. You should be acting with full force every day. It shouldn't come out as a day-to-day announcement now and again. But you see, this commissioner, Ola Christopher, I think she has problems, clearly, in dealing with this issue. And I had suggested, as you might know, one remedy to help her manage the police service, because the Constitution says she has complete control over the police service in promotions, discipline, everything, transfer. So she has to account, given all those widespread powers. There's no excuse. She cannot come every Monday morning and say, either you have to pray. When she was first appointed, to explain myself, I said give Ola Christopher a chance, because I thought she needs space, she needs to recruit. Having said that, now I am looking at her and hoping that she could improve, because I don't want to unnecessarily demoralize the police service, but at the same time, they have to do the work and lift their own morale internally. Having a police inspectorate will help them. Station to station inspection, look at the conditions, see what is wrong with the performance. All these details could be worked out at a police inspectorate, and the information gathered at the ground level could then be fed into the executive for quick action. But we don't know what the middle management is doing. We don't know who is upset, how many manpower in each station. We need some details for manpower strengthening. We're not getting that exercised by the executive. Like they don't know what's going on lower down. All you're getting is these announcements at the top. Full force. We're going to deal with the crime. Rewarding the criminals. These things don't help. They merely blunt the credibility of the authorities. And we cannot go on so.
And you're so correct, Professor, because I'm telling you, many citizens would tell you we are so fed up of all these verbal acrobatics that is taking place. A lot of this rhetoric and talk gets us nowhere. I mean, we've heard this before, that at the end of it, people simply put their hands in the air and say, listen, we are all to take blame. We are all responsible. We had a big conference, a regional conference, CARICOM conference at the Hyatt. We paid for it. People came, they wined, they dined. And at the end of it all, we are still talking about the fact that these things are taking place in the church, in the classroom, wherever it's taking place. But when you go back to the root of it, of course, the root of criminal behavior can be traced back to a person's development, starting from infancy and continuing throughout their lifetime. We're all aware of that. We're hearing it from all the stakeholders. Then how come there are no bold, aggressive moves to start changing a system that everyone can recognize and point to and say it has failed to the point where we are manufacturing criminals? Why are these changes not being put in place?
Mikey, I don't know. You see, in my case, I try not to be unduly sensational, because I know crime affects all of us. But having said that, and having contributed, if you don't mind my saying so, at all levels, I have headed cabinet-appointed committees to inquire into the remand yard and the prisons. I produced a report. I have produced all types of reports on delinquency, gang formation, and the last one is the police manpower audit, which I chaired. So I'm just saying so to tell you that I am extremely disenchanted. And when you invite me to the show, I wonder what more can I say? What more can I do? You know, I was offered a job at UTT, University of Trinidad and Tobago, to be acting president by Ken Julian, Professor Julian, and the UTT board. I turned it down because I wanted to spend my time on finishing the police manpower audit as chairman. So I have made sacrifices. I don't mind doing it in the interest of my country. But like you said, what else can we do than throw up our hands? And I don't want to be too sensational. I want to produce some assistance to the police by whatever intelligence I have, to the community. But what else can I do? I mean, I don't want to talk about what I did unnecessarily, but you see, when you talk about people putting up their hands in the air and the public is to be blamed and so on, the government has to be careful to accept its own responsibility first, and the people will follow. If you don't show the leadership at the top, the people will not follow. In fact, you're merely discouraging the people from following. There is no inspiration as yet. And we look forward to inspiration, encouragement, and higher level of performance.
And that's just the thing. We go back and we can make reference to all of these things. We can say the Deosaran report. We can say the Griffith report. We can say all of these reports. But at the end of the day, what comes out of these reports are never implemented to bring about that change. So I need to ask you, are risk assessments needed to assist the TTPS or other professional bodies to assist in this fight against crime?
Well, Mikey, you yourself, you don't know what else to say, because we have already had an audit of the police service.
Yeah.
We did an analysis of the manpower. We did about all the gaps in the system. We told them about the Police Service Commission. We made over 80 recommendations. Where are these recommendations? And the irony of the situation is that the Minister of National Security was chairman of the select committee that examined the police manpower audit. And I think he knows about it. Ola Christopher was a member of the Police Management Audit Committee. She signed off on it. I'm just mentioning these things to support your point that these reports are there. They are presumed to be helpful because the members of the Police Manpower Audit Committee were all independent people. They were attorneys. They were all from all different walks of life. That is one example. They cannot continue to have these reports, leave them there, and then keep on complaining about the same problem. It just doesn't look well, no matter who is in government. And a similar thing had happened with previous governments. There's a bad habit, a very bad habit, of appointing commissions, committees, and have the reports shelved eternally. I don't know what will happen to the Constitution Commission Advisory Committee now in their reports.
Yeah.
That's a recent thing.
You're
so
right.
we can see as an example.
Yeah, it always seems as though when you have these open forums, somebody has to be paid for the plants and the chairs and the tent, and who has to bring a big AC. And at the end of it all, does it really benefit the citizenry? We hear about, of course, the former Attorney General Faris Alwari said when it came to gang legislation, we were told as citizens they would know exactly who the gang members are, where they're sleeping, what they order to eat, whatever, all about their whereabouts. And today, we still have this situation whereas are these members and these players being identified? So what else can be done?
Boy, Mikey, as you speaking, I myself, I feel sorry for you too, because you're trying to point out the issues. A lot of people go on television and do the same thing, but nothing happens the next day. So we have a big talk shop in the country. Like there is sleepwalking among the agencies that's supposed to do their work. Just sleepwalking. Nothing else is being done. I don't know, you talk about a risk analysis. Maybe you need a risk analysis of the government itself. Isn't there a cabinet that if one minister falls short, the cabinet will pick up and push him or her? We're not getting that, you see. And you look as if these announcements merely, these public announcements by the authorities, they merely aggravate the population because they know they have heard this before, as you rightly pointed out, and they know they will hear it again next week. What else is new? This country is going way down with crime, and the crime is affecting every other aspect of our national life. And you have to know now, where is it coming from? Is it the dropout from the school? Is that parents are not taking care of their children as they're growing up? You cannot just say poverty. It is more than that. So we have to find out at least where is it coming from and put a gap. If you look at the end product in gangs and so on, the gangs are already formed. Gang culture is such that when you move one, there is always a replacement. You have to change the culture of gangs in this country. And that needs hard, patient, dedicated work. And that is what we need. Not only press announcements and taking out pictures. You need that too for politics. But now it's more serious than that. And you cannot have the public, you're asking them for property tax, and you're taxing them here, there, everywhere, and yet you're not getting the rewards from that taxation in terms of public safety.
And Professor Deosaran, the people who are locked on and viewing, I mean, the reality is that we live in a society, in a country, where if we wake up one morning and we hear nothing took place the night before, no one was gunned down, then we become so surprised, really. And then you have senior citizens who have given their life for productive Trinidad and Tobago, who have now become soft targets. Some of the most vulnerable in society, they can't even go out to cash a little pension check. They can't go about to make errands because it's so easy to just knock them down, take over, take whatever they have. And I mean, this is a reality that we have to face on a daily basis. You know, I don't know.
But it's so sad when you mention senior citizens. A lot of these people have worked hard.
Yeah.
They are old. They look for help. And what they get is a bullet in the head. I think that is a very sad, sad situation. And we have to face up to it. This is beyond politics, you know, Mikey.
Yeah, it is. Because, I mean, what kind of human being, you ask yourself, even when you look at the videos, because for some people it may be entertaining, but do you ask questions beyond the video that you're watching? You ask yourself, what kind of human would find some sort of entertainment by knocking down a senior citizen, brutalizing them, jumping through their window, kicking down their door, and doing something so vulgar to them? And that's okay? Don't you have a mother, a grandfather? I mean, what are we producing? What are we manufacturing? I mean, the Olympics starts this week, and I'm certain if they had a crime category, we could have sent so many athletes with that. But the reality is we are living this on a daily basis, and all we get is talk. And I agree with you. But are we going to be waking up every single day to this same thing?
Mikey, look. Let us look at a specific issue. Listen to how criminals are manufactured. Listen to how criminals are manufactured. If you don't get the detection rate in check, what you're having now is a lot of criminals are still loose. The murder rate is 340 something. The detection rate is between 12 and 15%, fluctuating. You're lucky if you have a 20% detection rate. What happens to the other 80% alleged criminals, murderers? They will repeat their crime. They repeat their murders. So you have a serious recidivism rate in terms of murderers, alleged murderers, because you're not detecting them. So whether you have the bail legislation or not, before you reach the bail situation, Mikey, you have to charge them. But you're not charging the murderers to put them in a position to ask for bail or be denied bail. The detection rate is one of the most serious gaps in policing. And whilst we're looking at the murder rate every day, what the paper should publish too is the detection rate every day too. Let the public know that the police need to buck up, or the commissioner should tell the country what is missing in her jurisdiction, so much so that she cannot apply the intelligence and the surveillance with all the technology available to find the murderers. Raise the detection rate to 60% or 70%, and then you have an effective and efficient police service. But we can't only count the murders. We have to look at the table as well on the detection rate. And the newspaper should publish that as well, not only the murder rate. Because the detection rate is what will tell you more about the competence of the police service.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, if you want to keep your family alive and spend Christmas and holidays with them, you basically need to ship them out and get them out of here as quickly as possible. And their chances will be better in a foreign country.
Well, Mikey, boy, finally, that is another calamity this country faces.
Yeah.
There's shipping out capital, foreign exchange is going out. Young people are going to study, but they're not coming back. Every family is thinking about how to send his or her child by using these international secondary schools we have in the country that link to Canada and the United States. As soon as you finish these secondary schools in Port of Spain, these elite secondary schools, They ship them, you go automatically into a university
Yeah,
in the
get them
United
out.
States or Canada. So there's a shipping out of talent. There's a big
That's right.
brain drain in the country. And
Yeah.
what will we be left with? What will we be
Absolutely.
left with to run our public service,
Yeah.
to have senior management position? Because sometimes you need the external training as well, of course.
Of course.
But not to go and study and stay. People are not coming back. I can tell you so many people I know, young, bright people, not coming back, Mikey. So we have a serious calamity in our,
Yes,
in
indeed.
our place.
Professor, I want to thank you so much for taking time out to link with us here this evening. I hope the next time we talk, we can somehow reflect on some improvement that has taken
A
place.
little more positive. We
I
should be
hope so.
positive.
Yeah.
Next time we hope to be positive.
Thank you so much again. Keep up the good work and best of luck to you and your family.
Okay, Mikey,
God
thank
bless.
you.
Have a good one.
Yours too.
Thank you.
Yours too.